It's a true story where there was discovery by desire, maybe not in the way you think. But imagine for a moment, if you will, that you're a parent with 3 young children at home, and one of those children gone missing, the youngest, the toddler is 2 years old. And no matter what you do, you've tried to locate it, but you can't find that child. And you've looked everywhere outside, you've looked everywhere inside, you've perhaps called friends, you've called the neighbors, and nobody's seen him. So now you're starting to panic. So you've enlisted the help of the 3- and 4-year-old sisters of that child to try to find them. And you're running out of places to look, and you have no idea what you're gonna do. And you're thinking, where are they? Panic is starting to set in. But before you call in the troopers, you do one last canvass of the yard, and you find that the subject of what you were looking for was discovered by desire. And in this case, as you can imagine, this is me snuggling up to my snuffer, which at the time was my most valued possession, sucking my thumb, an avid thumb sucker, nestled in between the sheets in plain view. True story, this really did happen, just the way I told it. And what that really brings me to is a business context, believe it or not. So is there some lessons in a snuffer and a sheets and the thumb sucking episode? There is. Believe it or not, there is. And the first thing is that if you are trying to connect and find somebody, what's the best thing to do? Had my mom thought about the fact that that blanket was my most prized possession and that it was washed that day and it was hanging on the line, she would have known right where to look for me. But in the heat of the panic, of course, you aren't thinking clearly, you're just worried about where your child is. But in business, it's the same way. Oftentimes, opportunities can be right in front of us, looking right at us, and if we don't know what their desire is, then it's hard to connect with them. And so, one of the other lessons learned is that we can also identify opportunities by looking at what people's desires are. So my mom, thinking that the blanket was my desire, would have known where to look for me. If I know what a particular client's desire is, or if you know what a prospect's desire is, then you're in a much better position to be able to connect with them, to find them. And I'll give an example. There was an account executive who was working for an office supply organization, and a new headquarters was being moved into that person's market territory. And when she joined the job, the bid had already been awarded to a competitor who was providing the office furniture for the entire headquarters. But through lots of persistence and lots of calls, she was able to get a meeting with the chief operating officer, who was responsible for all of the furnishings for that new headquarters. And when she met with him, she asked him, well, what are your goals? What are your desires? What is the most important thing for this new headquarters? And he was just sort of appeasing her by having the meeting, didn't really intend to do business with her because he already had a supplier. And so he said, it's really about collaboration. And she said, do you mind if I see the floor plan? And she showed him the floor plan. He showed her the floor plan, and she noticed that they were all rather large conference rooms. There was no small conference rooms. And she was able to reference some data that she was aware of, different studies that indicated that collaboration happens best in groups of 3 or 4, that when you get to 8, 10, 15, that the lines of communication start getting blurred and the productivity of the collaboration starts to decline. So she brought a valuable insight into that meeting. He said, well, that's great, except that I've already built the headquarters. The rooms are already built, so reconfiguration may not be an option. And at that point, because she was able to connect to what his objective and what the company's focus was for the headquarters, she introduced the concept of the room dividers, which some people have experienced perhaps at a hotel or a conference, where they can take and divide conference rooms by having almost like a curtain. And so she was able to get an opportunity and get into that account. How? By providing some insights, by bringing some insights to the table that connected his objective, his business objective, with something that she had, as opposed to just being an annoying account executive saying, I want a meeting and here's what we have to offer and we'll beat them on price. So in summary, it's often valuable to understand what is a person or an organization's desire. What's their goal? How can you connect with that goal? Because today, people will go online, they will circumvent account executives for the very reasons that many of us circumvent account executives, because they're persistent, they won't stop harassing us. We want to be self-directed. And people that are producers, people that sell, instead of being salespeople, they've evolved to become educators. And their role is to educate people in terms of the value that they have, the insights that they have, and how that can help them reach their goals. So, the moral of the story is, if you are trying to seek something of value, then share insights and connect it with desires. Madam Toastmaster?